Thank you so much for joining us for our series of virtual in-conversation events. We are incredibly grateful to all of the creatives and artists who shared their time, their wisdom, and their experience with us. It's easy to ask in the face of a global pandemic, why do the arts matter? But the truth is that theatre is as old as civilization itself. It's a place where we learn, we explore, and we share our common humanity. It's a pressure valve for society, a safe space in which to explore dangerous ideas. And above all, it's entertaining. At Dark Unicorn Productions, we rely very heavily on the support of our wonderful patrons to continue our work. You can join them and become a patron of the arts yourself by joining our scheme, which starts at just £50 per year to become a rainbow unicorn. Be part of the Dark Unicorn family. Be part of the recovery and the future of theatre. Don't let the lights go out. Become a patron today. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to this first online edition of Dark Unicorn in Conversation. Our guests today are two people who between them fulfil the roles of actor, producer, director and fashion designer. Sadie Frost was born in 1966 to a psychedelic artist father and a mother who was part muse, part creative powerhouse. An eventful upbringing resulted in a series of interesting character roles in 1980s and 1990s cinema particularly, and although perhaps better known in the popular media as part of the glamorous, hard-partying Primrose Hill set of the 90s and noughties, and as the wife both of Spandau Ballet's Gary Kemp and perhaps more prominently Jude Law, this sadly obscures a huge reservoir of creative talent, ranging not only from her memorable performances on film, through a period as a highly respected fashion designer, but also her work now as the champion of vibrant new cinematic talent as head of independent production company Blonde to Black Productions. Amongst their work is Set the Thames on Fire, a dystopian black comedy set in a flooded London, co-starring a cavalcade of quirky talent from Noel Fielding and Sally Phillips, through to the subject of our first live in conversation event, the queer cabaret legend David Hoyle. Sadie is joined by Ben Charles Edwards, who directed that film and has been a regular collaborator with her on a variety of work leading up to Set the Thames on Fire. Born in Woking, he has moved fluidly through the worlds of fashion and photography to become a deeply exciting voice on the indie cinema scene. When they spoke to me recently during a break from working on post-production on Sadie's directorial debut, a documentary about 60s fashion icon Mary Quant, I started by asking them about the presence of the arts in their childhoods. So you were born into a setting where art played a major role. Ben, I don't know, do you come from a similar sort of background? Or?
No, my grandfather was a pharmacist and no, family and business really. In fact, my grandfather was a good painter and drawer, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely grew up. My mum was on the stage and was a dancer and an actress. And then when I was growing up, she was like always in these films, and she had a theatre company, and my dad was an artist. And so I lived a very bohemian, creative lifestyle, which was good. But the interesting thing about this industry is you need obviously a lot of creatives, but then someone like Ben is actually, he's a creative, but then you can see that he has got a kind of structured kind of business mind as well. He's very formulated in the way he thinks, whereas coming from a really kind of bohemian, I found it so hard to kind of to structure things. I mean, even though I'm a producer and I've raised money and I've a businesswoman, that whole side was a real headache for me. But you kind of take to it quite nicely.
Yeah,
really.
And it's actually quite a good question to start off with, Paddy, because obviously Sadie and I's relationship has started and developed over the course of her producing very early work for me. And it's only recently that, in fact, we've kind of swapped roles and I've produced Sadie's debut movie, which is a documentary on Mary Quant. And within all of our years of friendship, to watch her go into that purely creative role, she's like, forget this, I'm nothing to do with production, I'm just going to direct. She actually seemed to fall into that better.
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting because you kind of start out your kind of career doing one thing, and you build relationships with people. And me and Ben have been working together for like how many years? Definitely over 10.
Yeah, 11.
And you know, so I've acted in things, I've produced things, and then he's produced things. Now I'm directing, and then we're working together on his next feature where I'm going to act. And it's nice how things kind of, you know, kind of change and evolve.
Yeah, and we never set out to be like, we want to do this.
Yeah.
You know, it was a friendship, and we just kind of make stuff as and when it feels fun. And
well, it's nice for it to be organic and to evolve and to be passionate about the project. And I think for me, like when I started being a producer and setting up my own company, I wanted to kind of represent new filmmakers, new writers, new directors, and that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I work with Ben. But then I kind of realised that I'd got myself into something that really wasn't my territory, and something that made me deeply unhappy, in the sense that I was just a money person. I was like knocking on the door, begging for money, trying to finance projects, really worried about, because I'm a real, you know, the money side of things, I like things to be really orderly. And the things with producing is you're kind of, you're
constantly playing catch up
and gambling and just like begging. And so now to kind of go back to, it feels like I literally had to do that, get on my knees and beg people for money to finish films and all that kind of stuff. So now going back and directing, it's just like such a breath of fresh air. I can just be creative, and someone else can be worried about the money side of it and the organization. And I can, you know, I've also been recently, because of lockdown, I've been asked to do, take photographs of, like, for a cover of a magazine of somebody, for a fashion campaign. So I'm being given creative opportunities I never would have got before. And then the funny thing about this Mary Quant project, with Ben producing it and me directing it, is we sometimes did forget our roles. So I'd be in a meeting and I'd be talking about getting really involved in the budgets and how's this going to work and how's that going to work. And then there was a couple of times when we were on set and Ben shouted cut. And I was like, what? You know, you're not allowed to shout cut. And he'd go, oh, sorry, I forgot. So there's been a lot of, like, you know, and we're very fun and playful with each other, with the kind of comings and goings of our working relationship. And, you know, I feel quite protective of him. And if anyone comes and steals him, I get quite kind of like, you know, we've built, you know, it doesn't take it. You can't just like have a working relationship that starts and is good in 5 minutes, or
it
takes a long time and trust, because also this industry can be incredibly negative, and people can really kind of, you know, the loyalty, you know, isn't always there, and people, you know, kind of do things that they
it is a tricky thing. And I think it was the fact that it was always organic. You know, I don't even know how many films we've made. I really don't know. We started off with funny little shorts, and the budgets got bigger. Then I was shooting commercials that Sadie was in, and popped in. I shot a gin commercial a few years ago. Sadie happened to be in the area where the studio was that we're filming, and ended up in the commercial. There's always been this kind of open door where we've just kind of created stuff. Some of it's worked really well, some of it's been a lesson, but you know, we've always done it for the right reasons, and it's always been a very natural
and also
thing.
And exciting, and you feel like you've got to spend a lot of time with people, you know, if you're developing a film or writing a film or shooting a film, so you've got to like their company. It's like I always say to people, it's like raising a small child. It's a commitment, you know, it's 3 years of your life, and you've got to really love that project, believe in that project, and like the people you're working with. So I might like a project, but then I'm thinking, could I sit in that room with somebody for nearly 3 years? And if I can't sit with somebody for a good few hours, I'm thinking, no, I don't want to do
I think that's a really good metaphor, the whole family thing. Because I think it's a bit like when you've got a kid that perhaps hits its coming of age years, and you realise you don't particularly like it very much. Well, tough, you're in it, so see it through.
I know.
Come out the other end at some point, but see it through.
I think, I mean, just starting with the work that you've collaborated on together, obviously your collaboration first came to my attention via David when he was working on Set the Thames on Fire, as we've known each other for a long time. And rewatching it before I did the event with him in February, I was struck by, I suppose, how prophetic it now seems. In terms of not only the sort of the environmental side of it, but the sort of the toxicity of people who can rise to the top, and the bravery that it takes to fight back or to leave. And did you feel when you were creating it that this might be something that would have another sheen to it a bit?
Sense of obnoxious filmmaking, but I mean, you know, there is that film is like a seed, and it was a very raw creative idea, and some would even argue that it's not even finished smoothly. But Sadie and I embarked on making our first feature films together, and Sadie went, knock yourself out, do it. If that feels great, do it. And it's so rare that as a director, with Sadie producing that one, how often does a first-time features director get the opportunity to go, do what you want? See what happens. So for that reason, it was such a plethora of ideas and ideas, you know, ideas and creative avenues thrown into one movie, that it inspires and people find something in that film to connect to. And I've watched over the 5 years since it's been out, a steady base of people growing. You know, I get emails more regularly every month about that film than I did when it had press and release behind it. Including fan art. It does inspire people. And I think you're right that within a world that we live in now, you know, we can all be cynical and say things are going to hell. But we also have to be aware of it. As much as, you know, George Orwell's 1984 feels so relevant now, you know, I think we always look for connections in everything.
I love the rawness of it. I mean, that's kind of what I enjoy about filmmaking. I love European films, and I love kind of independent films and films that just, you know, people just get up and do things. And I think it's incredibly ambitious, but for me, it really says something. And the performance, you know, the kind of the humor, but the darkness. And it is the film that I always thought it was going to be. It's not like sometimes you make a film and it doesn't turn out how you want it to be. But for me, it really just kind of had such individual kind of, you know, the whole thing, and for making it for that kind of money. And it really is kind of poignant for now. I think it is definitely relevant. We should, I think we're just about to negotiate a deal that it's a new platform, because I think people really need to see it. And I think we need to definitely do a push, get it like people aware of it to have a look at it now.
No, I think that's a really interesting point, Paddy. It does resonate now more than ever. And I think Al, a good friend of Sadie and I's, who wrote it, he's such a cynical, miserable guy. He's such a brilliant guy. Because he's a true artist, and he does look at the world and he can see the cracks in it. And I think, you know, the opening line where it says, you know, stay in London over the tannoys. Happiness is going down with the ship. It's like grin and bear it. The rain is coming. And that's quite typically British as well. Suck it up.
Well, you've talked, Sadie, and you mentioned about European cinema, and Ben, your work has been described as owing something to sort of a European, almost cabaret aesthetic, but also something very quintessentially British about the eccentricities that you portray in that. Obviously, the specifics vary by project, but what within your work is it that what do you most enjoy exploring within your work?
I mean, I've always just said I like telling stories that often other people just don't want to tell, or stories about people on the edges of society. So my next film is set in the Hijra community in Mumbai in Hindi, and then I've got a film in Durban about the street kids that's going to be filmed in Zulu, and I've been developing that for 3 years with a young boy that I actually kind of fostered and put through school to be a filmmaker, and then he couldn't kind of get a job because obviously he still, even though he was had all the training, it was still very hard for him to get a job in the industry. So I just see something that's very personal for me, and I want to say something and express it. And so with Ben's film, and then we did a film in America before called Buttercup Bill, and then Two for Joy was about mental health issues. And then after the Parcel is one in India, and then Innocent is the one in Durban. And then I've got a film called Live Forever, which is about how women were kind of marginalized in the 90s. So it's just telling sort of like things that are in me that I want to express. And then
You've
hope.
been quite fearless with it as well.
Yeah.
I've never remembered a point where you go, oh, maybe we shouldn't explore that. Maybe we should be a bit safer. You've always just gone to do it. Let's see.
Exactly. And I kind of feel like these things I would have hopefully said the things I want to say, and then I'm kind of would like to just like maybe just do a bit more directing and let other people just take on the responsibility of that, because it is exhausting, and I like to just enjoy the simple things as I get older. That I want to just kind of express that, and then hopefully I won't be having that need to, because I've been in this industry for such a long time, since acting when I was a kid. But I mean, what kind of films you've got a new film that you've just been co-writing and you're going to direct this year?
It's an interesting question, because I think as a filmmaker, I think there was a point when I certainly just wanted to create something for a reaction, see how people react to what I'm feeling, and that's why the early stuff was so raw and bizarre and odd, because it did get a reaction, and that's probably what I wanted, and that's important. Why create something if people aren't going to feel something? So of course you want to test the boundaries quite early on, and then hopefully the skill of telling a good story simply that appeals is obviously why we make film. You don't make a film by committee, and you certainly don't make it to have always the broadest appeal. You make it because that's how you feel, and that's how you hope to either inspire other people, to get people thinking. And it doesn't always have to be worn on its sleeve. Set the Thames is not worn on its sleeve. It's watch it, and there's some things in there that Sadie and I felt very strongly about. That end line that Sally Phillips says at the end of Set the Thames on Fire, when the impresario out of anger rips his own throat out. I actually posted again on Instagram a few days ago that line, which was power so rotten and ripe to burst eventually rips itself apart. And that is pretty prevalent now within parts of the world. They're raw ideas that you want to keep going.
You touched on Two for Joy there, and I think even on some event of that when I did the one of these in February with David, we both spoke about how he and I pondered over the fact that we'd both sort of gay performance artists. Well, he's a performance artist, I'm more of a director and just a standard actor, but we'd been very open in our work about issues surrounding mental health. And do you think there's a link between creativity and a propensity towards a slightly unsettled mental health? How do you keep an eye on your own mental health as artists?
Well, I think if you've experienced certain things or you've grown up with certain things, then of course you're going to be aware of it, and your whole thing is to kind of find some kind of peace within it. And everyone goes through whatever journey they go through, and if I grew up with, my father was a manic depressive and a schizophrenic, and was sectioned, and a lot of my family have got schizophrenia, and it was like always in me that something could be wrong with me, and because of this genetic thing. And so that I definitely struggled with anxiety and postnatal depression. And for me, when it was at its height, when something makes it worse, like a death of a family member or just something, for me, it was my divorce, and it became like so painful, and I struggled so hard with like daily for quite a couple of years. It was so important for me to spread the message to people who are struggling that actually you can get through it. It might be pain, I always made sure I got out of bed. I did the thing, I just put my one foot in front of the other. There were times that were dark, and there were times, and I just had to get through it. And I was really lucky that I had some friends that really helped. But now, I'm really very aware of other people. If I see, like, especially with my kids and their friends, like, I'm very aware of, like, addiction or just getting like certain things in place that help people kind of overcome it, and just give people the confidence to build, to have building blocks to get better and stronger. So I guess you get a certain amount of compassion, and you see things and you sympathize. Whereas I remember when I was going through postnatal depression, and it was very there was a huge stigma about it then, because it was like, oh well, you've got a beautiful baby, you've got a lovely house, you've got a lovely husband, and I was like, yeah, but I cannot I feel like I'm drowning. And nobody would really, it was really difficult. People didn't really want to understand. And I just think you have to kind of sympathize with people that are having those struggles. So in films as well, they can, that they can get the message across. And Two for Joy, we worked with a lot of mental health groups as well, and we did lots of Q&As. But it's just being aware and compassionate and helping and kind. People need to be kind, and there's a lot of I see in my area there's some homeless people or addicts, and I've helped them. And then other people's reactions to it, well, it's their fault. They're, why are they taking drugs, or why are they homeless? And you're like, oh my God, do you not understand? But I grew up with addicts, and I grew up being homeless. So I can understand, it can happen to anybody. And I've been somebody that's been shunned in a certain,
I think as well, there's always been a stigma attached to the words mental health.
Yeah.
Which is odd, because when I say physical health, nobody thinks twice. Well, you come back to the gym, or you've got a good diet. Everybody has mental health. We all have physical health. Where we lie on that spectrum will change from day to day, and it will change from year to year. So for somebody to be stupid and naive enough to have any apply stigma to somebody else dependent on the words mental health is ridiculous. We remember that all of our chances, all of our opportunities in life for happiness are half chance, and everybody's is. So nobody is on top of one another, and we're never on top of our health. We have to maintain it. So in order to an artist can use it as an outlet to improve mental health. As a kid, I was an aggressive, angry kid. And it was only when I found that I had an outlet, an expression, in fact, it helped channel it. Some people may not need that. Some people may find exercise is a great release for when mental health deteriorates. So I do think there is a connection, but I don't think they go hand in hand. I just think that people that perhaps find an avenue to express better mental health themselves, and sometimes it's through creative platforms.
But it's also good to talk about it, make people aware. The more now people are talking about it, you don't feel so alienated. When people have rung me up and they're like, I'm having a panic attack, what should I do? We can all talk about it, and it's so much, things are getting better. But it's just, we just got to try and make this a kinder, more compassionate world. And
keep the conversation going. Yeah. And, I think half the problem is that people for so long felt the stigma, as Sadie said, attached to the word mental health. It's not. There's no problem with talking about it.
And you have, Sadie, just touched there briefly on not only the issues of mental health, but also homelessness. And you do an enormous amount of work as an ambassador for Centrepoint. Tell us how you got involved with that, and what both you and they are currently trying to do.
So I think I maybe around 10 years, I think I've been an ambassador for Centrepoint. I've just always thought it was really wrong that anybody should be homeless, and people walking around, they don't even give any eye contact. I remember actually at 5 years old, 6 years old, it was within the days, I've always lived in Chalk Farm, Belsize Park, and kids could just walk around. I used to walk to school on my own, and I would walk around, and there was a tramp that was just homeless living in Belsize Park Tube, and I became his friend. It was a tramp then, you call them tramps, but now they're homeless people. And I used to take him food, and I, right from an early age, was very aware of people that were lonely and people that were homeless or didn't have things. So I would always be taking food and caring for them. So it was just something that was always in me. So then it was just the right thing to join up with Centrepoint. And I just help a lot of local people as much as I can, and raise awareness, help kind of raise funds. I think it's awful that, for anybody, coming, from why they leave home. I was very close recently to this boy who, for 5 years, I've helped and looked after. And when the pandemic happened, he lived outside Chalk Farm Tube. And I just knew that it was going to be even harder being a drug addict and being homeless. And he ended up getting in an accident a month ago, but because there wasn't the support system. So you need charities like Centrepoint, and I think a lot of the homeless people recently also got housed into the hotels that have been empty, but now I think they've all been told they have to leave, don't they?
Out, yeah.
And you know,
it's not a solution. It's not an ongoing plan. Yeah. It's just clearing them out. It's, you know, it's dreadful. And you go to other European cities, and of course, you know, some are far worse. When you see children on the street, there is a saving grace here in London, and the fact that I don't often see very young children.
Yeah.
But as Sadie said, you know, she had this friend who I had the pleasure of meeting a few times, a guy that was clearly struggling for no choice of his own, and just had a bad footing, and you know, he passed recently from an accident that he got into on the street. It's just it's dreadful.
And I just, like, every single person I see, I just kind of, I think we all have to just think about every person who's there, and you know, and it's stopping and having the time, you know, if not just, you know, trying to help somebody sporadically. It's like, you know, engaging people, because you know, their souls are broken, and nobody deserves to just be treated like that. And you know, the whole world has to wake up and think about, we have to respect every single human being and every single animal, and you know, every soul, and you know, we've all got to try a bit harder.
I think we've all been on a bit of a treadmill,
where
we just go, well, it's fine, it's not affecting me, it's fine, cool, I'm aware of this cause, and it doesn't affect me. It does, because you are a part of the problem unless you're actively doing something to solve it. It's that simple. So we can all say, I'm not racist. You know, this is a topic at the moment. That's fine, cool. But if you are silent towards the oppressor, unfortunately, you're a big part of the problem. You know, and that's something that everybody's psyche around the world needs to get on board with a new outlook. Things are going to have to change, and I think they are. Things are shifting. Have to.
It's heartbreaking otherwise, you know.
There will be, for anybody watching this, there will be details in the description below about how you can help the work of Centrepoint, and find out more about the work that they do.
Yeah, they are a wonderful, wonderful charity. So yeah, just definitely, if anybody who's watching this can support them, that would be great.
In terms of also sort of helping young artists during this current period, Ben, I know you've been doing some work with Brilliant Theatre Arts, and obviously, Sadie, you have children. Your children are very heavily involved in creative work. What sort of world do you see for the upcoming generation of artists? What sort of industries do you think they'll have to work in?
Well, I mean, I think my main thing was, like, just before the lockdown happened, just looking around my kids, you know, there's 4 of them, and they're all in the creative industry, and they've all got, you know, 10, 20, 30 friends, and all those people, you know, from 17 to late 20s, were all at the beginning, either at kind of school, uni, about to start jobs, in the beginning of their careers, and they were all, you know, have worked so hard to get to a place, and they've suddenly had their whole lives have had to be put on hold. And what I really respected and saw amongst, I would say, like 20, 30, 40 young people, is how well they did adapt, because some of them have lost, you know, haven't been able to do their A-levels. Some of them have, they were just about to do a tour, of they'd worked all their lives to do a tour, you know, to be a musician, and their tour was cancelled, or their film was cancelled, or their first directing job was cancelled. And, you know, I mean, that's heartbreaking to see the fact that their future could be taken away. And what is going to happen? Like, are people going to be doing live gigs, you know, next year? Are films going to be able to film in the same way? So for my whole thing around, you know, these kids and people has been helping with their mental health, you know, keep positive, exercising, encouraging them. We did lots of little mini projects, like we shot some little, because I was isolating with quite a few people because of my kids and their partners, so we were making little mini short films, and I was interviewing them, and I just think it's just encouraging people and giving them hope to just that things will move forward. And in fact, some people, and I've noticed it, have become more creative, like some of the music that's been written by one of my, you know, sons, and my other son's a manager, so he's seeing his artists record some brilliant stuff. And you know, so it was just encouraging people to be motivated and saying there is hope and, you know, out of this, yes, it's awful and there's a lot of suffering and a lot of bad things have happened, but you can, you know, good things can emerge.
We're going to move out of this.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as you said, even Brilliant Theatre Arts, it's a platform that quickly adapted. In fact, Sadie had involvement with them as well and did a Q&A with a lot of their students, because it's a platform that quickly adapted to see that these kids need nothing more than hope. Keep going. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're stuck in your house for a while, but you can do stuff. You can still create. And it, you know, I think even speaking to some of these kids that I've been teaching and that Sadie spoke with, it's quite clear that their lives have simplified in the sense that their eyes are open a bit now and they can actually see things for what they are. And, you know, I mean, even me, I can sit in my garden and I can see myself staring at a flower for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't have the brain space or my speed was working at a different level to even pay attention to the beauty and creativity. We've all got it within us. And I actually think that when times like this come upon us, is a great time for people to actually go, you know what, I can see the world for what it is and find that energy inside of you. Artists will always survive. It's the liberal look at the world and the future and the hope and the possibility that we can, or people can inspire others with.
And in terms of work that is forthcoming, you're currently are you in post-production on Quant now? Or?
So basically we're editing and we're just waiting for the guidelines to emerge, and next week we're trying to finish off the last few interviews. Then we can finish the edit, which will be by the end of the summer. The film will be probably pushed back 3 months because we were hoping to get it for Berlin and Sundance, which I don't know if now those festivals will be online. We might be able to submit it like work in progress, because that would have been a great place, either Berlin or Sundance, to launch it. And then I'm just about packaging these other films, just about to shoot a little short film that I'm going to direct.
Are you directing that one?
Yeah, the one.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so exciting. So it's you know, I've used this as a very creative time, and as Ben said, I was running like so fast from meeting to meeting, all this hot air and blah blah blah, and then like I've been able to sit back and just really appreciate the simple things. And there's still not enough time to do things. There's so many things that I want to do, but I can kind of have a better perspective and realize, like, actually, because what happened was, I guess a lot of us were really faced with our kind of, you know, mortality, and it's like, what do I want in my life? What don't I want? What career do I want to do? What friends do I want? You know, what is going to make, I need to live each day to make me the happiest. If it's going to end in, you know, my mind kind of went into complete catastrophe. I remember. And I was like, you know, so I've got to enjoy every day. It has to be something that I do something that's for me and fulfilling. And the whole kind of business and we're all like so told it's got to be about success and this and that. And actually, at the end of the day, like really, that is just a big con, because that doesn't make you happy. Like, what is happy is family and friends, and of course, you know, and sharing food and doing nice things, but back to basics. You know, I don't need any of that a lot of that stuff. I'd rather just walk away from it if it's going to kind of create unhappiness. So I definitely, you know, over the last few months, there's been quite a few, I've lost about 5 friends, not in the pandemic time, not to COVID, you know, weirdly, like other things, you know, that have happened. But I'm trying to find some inner peace and positivity just to go forward in my life, but to help other people. But you have to we can't all, you know, catastrophize, and, you know, if everyone kind of operated on that you know, that level of vibration of just being all doom and gloom and depressed, I mean, there has to be some kind of buoyancy and positivity and excitement and hope. Otherwise, there's no point.
I think within the dark cloud of COVID, there's a real glimmer of hope and light, which is families have been able to spend some time together in some circumstances that perhaps didn't have the opportunity before. Kids have had 2 months at least of breaks on, like, let your brain wander now. What do you want to do? What excites you? And as Sadie said, to cut through the crap of what we're sold. Like, I wonder how much people care when they're concerned about their grandfather's health, how much they care about Kim Kardashian's Instagram. I think it's given people a brilliant perspective on really what life is about, and the smart ones are going to keep hold of that.
And
they are going to end up happy, and that is success. Success is nothing more than finding inner happiness and making other people happy.
I have had a couple of questions, and I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but there are only a couple that I'll run through that have been sent in. The first one, which is actually from my executive director, who told me she would kill me if I didn't ask this question, because she's a big animal rescue person herself. You're both dog owners. How big a part of your life are your animals, and how do you name them?
Okay, interesting. I'll go first. So I've always loved dogs. I've got a dog. I don't know like how I name them, but I love naming things. So my children's names are very important, and my dogs too. So I had Ringo, who passed away last year, and Rosie. We just got a dog this like 2 weeks ago called Dusty. So now me and my partner have 4 dogs together, and a cat called Earl Grey. And I guess like
and
I like
Ginger's coming.
And I've got a dog called Ginger Rogers coming in 2 weeks. So I wanted a little mini sausage dog. I've got a couple of rescues, and then we've got Rosie, who's an old Bichon Frise, who's like the queen mother. And you know, they all sleep on my bed, on my head, which apparently means that they're
always around you as well.
You know, I spend a lot of time on my own at home. Now the kids are growing up, and I never feel lonely when I've got my animals. And the funny thing is, in my house, like the dogs get on with the cat, and there's also like a couple of birds, like little robins and a magpie and a blackbird. They all hang out with the cat as well. So nobody seems to like touch wood, eat each other, and they all, you know, the same. And I pretend I'm Snow White, and I sing that little song. And I go, the little bird's there, and the cat's there, and the dogs, and I'm like, oh, I'm Snow White. And I think that's what I feel like, I'm Snow White.
It's a pretty exciting answer. Mine's not as I've got a dog called Margot, and that's because when I found her, she had her legs crossed like this, like she was really posh, and she reminded me of Margot from The Good Life. And it just kind of stuck. I was like, you look like Margot from The Good Life. And I've got a beautiful little cat kitten called Cecil. And I just thought, what a great name for a cat, little Cecil. And I think on my coffee table there's a Cecil Beaton book. And I was like, oh, that's a great name. But yeah, I love animals. I think we all do. Don't trust anyone that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very important.
And finally, what is the project? This is from Neil in Dundee. What is the project you've most wanted to do but haven't had time for yet?
I don't know, like when I first started wanting to make films, in the production company that I have now, I wrote, and me and you talked about this a lot, it was based on an area in Kentish Town, Chalk Farm, Queen's Crescent, there's an estate there where some of my friends live, and it was based on a friend who was a hairdresser who used to go around and do the hair in different apartments, and she basically took on everybody's like what she kind of found out, so much information.
Don't give too much the story away.
Anyway, it's called Dirty Hair. That's a film I want to make, and me and you want to make that, and that's going to be our next.
It's constantly been on the back burner, and it's probably been quite a good thing because the premise that Sadie's come up with is quite strong. So any other films and years that pass that we get better. It's maybe good, because one day we might smash it with that one.
And now we need to just start thinking about getting it off the ground.
Yeah, that's the next step.
Well, Sadie Frost, Ben Charles Edwards, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thanks very much.
Thank you.